So now tensions are getting hot in Texas, not because it's summertime, because it ain't that hot right now. It's because the state is beginning to mobilize against the federal government. So, Brian, if you could, first, let's just rip it off with those first 3 clips. Dave, you might want to watch these just to see. People of Texas are not happy. So we had to cut the audio on this one because it had, your patriotic music. But here's all the farmers coming out. This is them at the border. This is literally on a hillside at the Mexican border. Hundreds of tractors, farmers making themselves known. I believe the second one is just more people coming out in, this is at border town cities where they're just showing the people's position here. It's taken a lot of people to kind of bring attention to this because for a while now, this has been an issue that we've kind of hid away from. And then finally, this is just a trucker caravan where the truckers are coming to show out for the cause as well. What's interesting is, I just want to remind you of the many instances where we've seen this type of deal, right? Right now, we don't have to show them, Brian, but I have videos on deck of what's going on in France. And it's crazy. Maybe we could have Brian show the videos, but they're on the desktop too. But they're literally like the farmers are retaliating.
Yep.
And there's this huge protest that is not being reported anywhere in America. And they're dumping like tractors of feces and stuff in the cities of France.
You want A, B, or C?
You know what? Honestly, any of them, because we might save them for the Rethink Actions or another.
Oh yeah, spraying liquid manure.
Yeah,
that stuff's nasty. I tell you what, oh my god, you smell that from miles.
Farmer's mouth.
So, okay, I bring this up because this is going on currently. I want to remind you about, what happened in Canada, right? So there was the truckers caravan in Canada, and GoFundMe and all these organizations took a political official stance in suffocating these causes. And catch the common thread here. What's going on in France, what happened in Canada, what's currently going on in Texas. These are positions made by the people. This isn't some evil organization. In the past where we have these conflicts, it's, that's just Antifa. That's just, what's the Proud Boys. Like, this is just people. The people they no longer feel represented, and they're speaking out, right? They're taking a position. What's going on in Texas, right? So we have a sieve of a border wall. We're just letting people through. That being said, actually, Brian, before I move forward, can you play video 6, Texas 6? This is crazy. This is, if you want to know what the border looks like, this is what the border looks like.
Silence is okay. They let him through. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. America! America!
They're just carte blanche, just go right that way. No big deal. And you know what's funny? I don't think I have the video ready for today's episode.
I just saw some on the news about there's video of literally vans dropping people off, just dropping them off at the border.
Wait, even better. So let's take Doug's scenario where they're coming up in vans to the border. Now the cartels own just sections of the border. Different cartels.
I wouldn't say now. They've always owned.
Well, yes. But I'm just giving an idea of the current present mechanism in place. Now there are at the border, cartels own different sections of the border. And for you to get through, they're making the money. They'll liaison you through the border. So not only do some of them provide like a service to get you there, but and that's not all of them, but at the very least, they're like the troll under the bridge, and you have to pay the troll toll to get into the boy's hole. And we're the boy, in fact.
Where's the boy?
And there's a boy, and I'm
So whatever.
oh my God. So that being said, what's sad is of any of the people profiting from this just hemorrhage, it's the cartel. It's not even us, not even the taxpayers. And again, I have had this dialogue enough times on the podcast, but I cannot have this conversation without acknowledging I want all the people here. I've made the provocative argument that I think we should just take over Mexico. Like we should just take it over. It should be an extension of America. It'd become the epicenter of the world economy, like we did to South Korea, because it's a developmental economy that we can take advantage of. And all of those people should be Americans. All I ask is that they sign the social contract, pay into the social contract, and pay taxes. So here's the problem. All of the corporations, Apple, Google, I don't know, pick it, Deathwater, they're all going to profit off of the cheap peasant labor of Mexicans. And we get none of the benefit from the taxes because we can't report that we're taking advantage of this practically slave labor. So the pride that I took advantage of in the first section, where in the first segment, where like, hey, we put an end to slavery. Well, did we really, when we're like low key looking the other way and taking advantage of what I would argue is modern slavery, just enough to exist, not enough to thrive, and we're taking advantage of your disparity. Yeah. So I have a problem when the border looks like that. The cartels are the ones taking advantage of the people coming through, and we're going to see zero of the benefit. Only corporations will. Before I flip to David, does Ricky have something?
Ricky.
America is taken from all angles, man. It's sad, but Alex, sorry, it's not just. It's majority of them is not Mexicans, not anymore. It's all of Central. It's Central America, South America. It's like Haiti, Africans. It's not. I can't even blame the Mexicans no more. I fuck with my Libras. You feel me? I ain't blaming the Mexicans no more, though. But they're trying to sustain it just like us. And if they're shipping them to the border, hey, U.S. is shipping them up north. Hey, it's just all fair trade.
Dude, cheers to Ricky for further enhancing the perspective. The reality is, it isn't even Mexicans coming through the border. It's people from all over Guatemala and other Eastern countries coming to here through the Mexican border. And China's shipping them.
Technically, under our laws, they're supposed to seek asylum in the first country,
exactly,
before they can come here.
Cheers to Doug.
But they really just completely avoid that fact.
So no. So they've completely the legal element of necessity is not satisfied. Is not satisfied because it isn't necessary. Because, like Doug said, for you to go through 32, that's also been a piece on the podcast before. For you to go through 32 other countries to get here means that you do not satisfy the legal element of necessity.
Yeah. And when you claim asylum, essentially a lot of these are not they're not illegal immigrants. They're just kind of in between. They're in purgatory of our government, and we don't necessarily have the infrastructure, nor do I think we want the infrastructure to be able to litigate every single person that comes here with their own asylum story, with their own unique perspective on why they decided to come to the United States. We'll call it the improper way, not through the most illegal or noble of means, but they came through here.
It's the illegal way.
They're not technically illegal until they're denied asylum. So if everyone claims asylum, they're not illegal. They just need to go through the process. That's the new thing. Prior to I understand.
As soon as you cross the border without going through the border checkpoint, like there's a checkpoint that if you want to come into America, you can legally go to this checkpoint and go through it. If you cross at any other point,
hold the fuck up. This is the fact.
Oh, he's standing up.
Oh, no, this is the reality. This is how Democrats work. We are now playing word games. We're playing fucking word games. They do what? They're not illegal because they went to the. No, they are. This is it. Are they citizens? No. I don't give. Are they asylumed? They might be seekers.
They're seekers.
But are they asylumed by the country? No. What's happening currently is they are being processed, given a cell phone, given a stipend of free fucking money, and just sent. Just go. And Texas like, fuck that. Get on this bus. We're taking you to New York.
And now they're complaining about the strain of hosting all these migrants.
Yeah,
okay, is it fair that Texas has been dealing with this for years now, and now just a few, barely a year of them sending them to New York, they're complaining, sending them to Colorado, California, these sanctuary places.
Guess what?
And they're complaining. Oh, they have no right to complain when Texas has been dealing with it for so long.
Agree totally. And here's how this is going to be played. I am not about to allow this conversation to be derailed and distracted by the Democrat bullshit that is word games. So let me truly hammer it down. We're not, for the sake of this conversation, of the sake of disarming David's nonsense, we are literally not going to call them illegal for the rest of this conversation. They are non-citizens. I don't care what you could call them, freaking unicorns. I don't care what the fuck you call them from here on out. They are non-citizens. So play whatever word game you want. They do not belong here without paying into the social contract. And again, I double down. I don't care if everybody is given that pass to be a player in the game. The sad part is we don't have the room for the whole world to be here. Okay, David? Okay? all of this can't fit here. So we got to do something. And last point, Doug, this comes back to Google it, not you, Brian. Google it, audience member at home. Go to YouTube. The greatest analogy about immigration. Search on YouTube, Marble Immigration Experiment. This guy does a TED Talk, and he describes how we take 2 million people a year, and he takes a little marble and goes boop. And it's like tunnels of marbles of starving people in all the other desperate areas. And you're saying we need to let them immigrate here to help this problem, the Tower of Marble starving people. But we take one every year. And even if you were to take a handful of marbles and fill it up, it's not going to solve this problem. You're still having a tower of starving marbles. So the reality is, when it comes to an immigration conversation, or even more so, the moral conversation of helping and aiding desperate people, if you truly want to help and aid them, you help them where they're at. You don't give them the fool's dream that, this can be magically fixed if you just come here, come to Oz. No, you need to make life better where they're at. And so, I'm sorry, to me, I think it's a lost illusion in thinking immigration is the moral savior to people's struggling issues. And again, the whole Green Moss area is going to fit in that little bit. We don't have the space. All the land is accounted for. And how many of those people are paying to our social contract? Again, non-citizens. All right, now I'll pitch it to you.
Well, okay. Real quick.
All right, we got
Sorry, David. You mentioned social contract. And I agree with everything you kind of just went off on that tangent about. Social contract, though, all right? We were a melting pot. And I say we're because we're not really the melting pot.
We're like a salad. Yeah. You could pick out every piece you want now.
You can mix it together, but it's not really
right. You want to find the carrots, you can find the carrots.
So we used to be a melting pot where when you came here, you didn't want to lose your culture, but you became an American. But now we got these people who are blank American and blank American and blank American. Like they want to identify with what their culture is, but guess what? They're like 5th generation American and whatever. And these people want to come here, and they want to come here. They really do. But do they also want to assimilate? Yes, into America? Because let's look at, we don't legally have a set language, but it's English. But yet every legal document is set to have a Spanish section. You go to vote on the ballot and it says yes, no, C, no.
Right.
Like because of the Spanish portion. And how long until, because we don't have a set language and we don't have these people actually melting into us because we have so many people who didn't come through legally that they aren't assimilating the way they should. That we have to have Spanish on our legal ballot. We're in Ohio. We're not even in the southern border, and we have Spanish on our ballots.
Well, let's go to comments before we go to David, and then I'll respond to Doug because
we got
those are
Ricky.
great points. Oh, we got Ricky, dog.
Oh, Ricky.
So I was wondering, how long do you think sanctuary cities are still going to be alive past this election, right? And only way to stop the border thing is for like a 9/11 at the border, like a coordinated attack, people coming through the border. Some, God forbid, some shit like that happens. That's the only way to stop the border crisis, where everyone will be like, no, 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 no.
Well, I'm gonna let
But
David.
let me. So I guess as far as like sanctuary cities go, I guess they've happened for a while. This isn't a new thing.
They were sanctuary cities as long as the people couldn't get there.
Yeah.
And then when they started arriving on buses, they were like, okay, game changed.
It's like sanctuary city is always it's a political thing. So you're a sanctuary city for illegal immigration. You're a sanctuary city for, I guess we can call it gun rights. We can do all sorts of different things. So it's really just more of a political mindset. So as long as there's someone that's willing to take in migrants from another country, there will always be a sanctuary city, regardless of how hard the federal government will impose its will on them. So there will be somebody that will have that. But I guess let me say, you're Ricky, in the spirit of your question here, will they be in the same caliber as they are now? I think, yeah. I don't necessarily think they're really going to go away. It's like Denver, Colorado is probably a big one. LA, San Francisco, like the very liberal cities were fairly close to the border. I don't think we're going to, like, when we start seeing Boston as a sanctuary city or Minneapolis as a sanctuary city, when they start coming up at like cold areas, I'm going to start being a little bit more concerned. I don't think even like Portland might be a sanctuary city, but I think as far as like population goes, I don't think there's a whole lot of migrants up there.
Ricky, I'm going to tell you, they're coming for you in Nantucket.
Sanctuary cities, man.
I see it, bro. For real. For real. They taking a lot of people here. I'm like, damn, am I going to have a work next year? Or what's going on here?
Dude, if I'm dropping a Palestinian or a Peruvian anywhere, it's your front yard, right now. Joe Biden's backyard, Nantucket. I'm putting it right in Ricky's bench. You got a bench on your street? How many people can I fit on, Ricky? I'm sending them to you.
Oh, no, they actually banned people off the island that don't have places to stay. So they'll get you a boat ticket off.
Are
They're
those
very strict.
Citizens or non-citizens?
No, anyone, citizen, anyone. If you're outside,
we got Americans without a place to stay.
Your
hey,
address or your billing locations now in Nantucket.
But there was a Vietnamese lady that couldn't get a chicken bone back home, so we got to get her a place in Nantucket. What do you got for us, Dougie, before I respond to your last comment?
You're talking about sanctuary cities, too. It's an interesting thing that those popped up during Trump's time, you know? Well, like, apparently they're still okay with it under Biden's administration. So what happened, because our topic is Texas, so bring it back to home here for a second. What happens if all those border cities, or what happens if the whole state of Texas were decided to be a sanctuary state where, you know what, we'll abide by certain federal laws, but guess what, we don't want to work with you, so you know what, we're going to deal with all of our own shit ourselves, you know, because that's what those sanctuary cities are. They're like, no, screw the federal government, we want you out of here, we'll deal with everything, we're not going to work with you. So if Biden's allowing these cities, because they started under Trump, really, you know, or at least got in the news under Trump. Maybe they were even before Trump.
They were in retaliation to Trump.
Exactly. So apparently those cities still must have those policies, but Biden's letting it slide, because did we hear anything about them rescinding their policy of being? So apparently Biden's administration is okay with it. So why can't Texas kind of do the same thing? To bring it back to home there for a quick second.
Well, I think they are doing I think they are doing that.
They're attempting.
I mean, they're
Biden's
attempting.
trying to fight them on it, so it's pretty ironic that he'll let cities fight the federal government, but God forbid a state fight the federal government.
So, David, in your response, can you also flush out for us what is happening in Texas, like between the Constitution, like the fight back and forth, the stalemate?
Let's paint the picture here. So, right now, the issue with the standoff at the border between Texas and the federal government. So, under the Constitution, the federal government has control over the border between state and country. So it's unfortunate Texas is right at kind of a hotbed of a lot of different things going on, and I think they are our biggest border amongst the country outside of so like maybe Montana with like Canada, but I think Texas probably has a little bit more square footage between front end between Mexico, regardless. So there's a lot of stuff going on in between Texas and Mexico, and the United States government has the authority over that. So Texas sued the federal government in court under, I don't know which amendment in the Constitution, but it was one of them.
It was the one about supposedly the federal government having control over the border.
I think it's like the supremacy. I think it was the supremacy clause over the border. So Texas fought, said, "Hey, government, I don't think you're doing what you need to be doing to be able to protect our citizens, protect the people over here. We feel we're doing a bit of a better job over that." So there's a particular, probably about 2 to 10 mile stretch on the Rio Grande where the Texas Border Patrol put razor wire in the river, around the river.
And they also recently took over that Eagle Pass area.
Yeah, and there's a lot of razor wire there, putting kind of their own spin on the border there. So there was several migrants that died trying to cross Rio Grande.
That recent drowning, which technically they drowned, according to the state of Texas, before the Border Patrol, like before the Federal Border Patrol came to them asking for access, and they were found on the Mexican side of the border anyways. That's Texas's side of the story there with that the most recent.
So the federal government wants to come in and take away the razor wire to prevent unnecessary death on the Rio Grande. So the Texas government is not really allowing that. So right now what we're seeing is just a big standoff between the federal government and the Texas Border Patrol on that whole situation. So where we kind of get into that, the Supreme Court was a 4-3 situation, a 4-3 ruling, where they did side with the federal government that this is their jurisdiction to be able to allow them.
They originally
to
allowed it, like stated saying the federal government couldn't, but then they ended up ruling that they could as needed. I think so I don't think they can necessarily cut down all of it, but I think they did get the allow to the emergency part of it.
Yeah, I think that they get the authority to be able to come in. So right now the big standoff is, well, there's an end date and there's a certain time where, politics aside, someone needs to either do or don't. And that's what we're running into right now. And so we're seeing a lot of support. So the border thing is always a hot topic. You get people riled up over the border. You get constituencies, you get voters, you get supporters, all about that. Like the farmers, they're putting their tractors out. Like I'm in support of border control and border responsibility, so to say. So they don't want the federal government to have that control. So a lot of it is more of like a spiritual. We would call it spiritual. Texas, hey, I'm going to stand my ground. Government, don't you dare come. Don't cross this line. Government's going to, I'm going to cross this line because this is under the rules of the Constitution, which we all abide by. This is what we want. So that's what we're running into, and this is the crux of the issue. And there's probably a little more legal jargon to go into.
And I really like
to rebuttal to here.
Not even that. I think David did an excellent job at presenting all that to further enhance the perspective. Brian, if you could play that video. So David was talking about what's going on at the border. Like Texas felt the need to exert their authority and protect their borders. So kind of like an apocalyptic town, they just throw up barbed wire. And here's the media pulling on your heartstrings. let me through. I got this far. And, it's literally guys crying at the border.
You got that far, but you got that far illegally.
No, it was totally legal. I exchanged.
And
I exchanged legal dinero for cartel donkey. What is it? Mule me, right? Donkey me right to the front.
Guess what? Your dinero doesn't count for U.S. dollar. All right?
It is always a sob story. It's never just some, kind of military-aged male who's, well, I want a better life here because they have better opportunities. I just want to live better. They don't say that. It's always a mother and a child. It's
exactly.
A family. It's
stuck in a river somewhere.
It's always of that. It's always of that ilk. And I think if we're a little more honest about who's crossing the border, it's women and children, absolutely. But there's also just men who want to. I don't want to deal with the stuff in my country here. I want to make more money in America. That's really it. A lot of it just comes down to it. It's just economic prosperity. Yeah, I think we all agree. Yeah, that's cool. I'm glad you want. I'm glad you want that. I'm glad you want to be a part of that. But there is a legal channel to be able to do that, and it is, kind of life. You were born into a country in which that's not necessarily the opportunity you want to seek, and now you got to seek it somewhere else. There's ways to go about it. There's also ways to help it at home. There's more than one way to be able to solve the issue in which you're having. And I think we brought this up a little bit earlier. If we were to take maybe some of the military might we were giving to Ukraine, Israel, Iran, all these other places, and go right in towards Mexico, because there's not a whole lot of military action in Mexico. It's some FBI, some CIA, some little more. It's more covert ops. It's not obvious American military outside the Coast Guard that is just coming in and solving the issue. Because I think we could solve the issue pretty quickly, and we could have a really symbiotic relationship between Mexico and the United States. But I don't think the Mexican government wants that. If you're the president of Mexico, Alex, and you say, hey, I'm going to let the U.S. military come in and solve all our problems. Do you think you're going to be voted back into office or retain any sort of the power you currently have?
Well, here's the sad part is you probably would be elected back into office if there was a true democracy. The people would probably be thrilled over that. The problem is they're not the ones calling the shots in Mexico, David. It's the cartel. Doug.
Well, no, we've talked a lot here, but I feel bad because I mentioned my original rebuttals, and then I brought up the sanctuary stuff, and you've never had a chance to rebuttal, Alex.
Oh, no. I'm going to get to your melting pot, the simulated culture part. Okay. But trust me, I have my notes on that. I wanted
to make sure because I felt bad because then I brought up, and then we got talking about the border.
Keeping the theme of the
on the Texas border.
Right. No. So, okay, we showed the people at the border. Can you now go to the video of Governor Greg Abbott, and he is evoking Texas's constitutional authority to self-defense?
Of the Constitution knew there would be times when the federal government would not live up to its duty. And so they empowered states in Article 1, Section 10, the right of self-defense. The Biden administration has really, truly abdicated its responsibility to secure the border and enforce the laws. Texas has a right as a state to stop criminals from coming into our state, to make arrests of those criminals.
So really, there's a legitimate legal stalemate going on, as you were kind of alluding to there earlier when you were talking about this conflict. So this has been a tug of war. Issues going to the Supreme Court. We've got who has control over the Texas National Guard. It's this wild time. It's flat out. And Brian, if you could start queuing up that map, the reality is this: they pose probably the simplest and most corroborated legal argument there could be. I think it should be Texas map. It should be just through presentation. You should find it right there with the videos too. But the reality is this: when it comes to the issues at the border, yeah, we all want to have a heart. I want to have empathy for the family in the river. But at the same time, you have the federal government. You have a legal duty to protect our border. And whether or not instead of one marble, you get frisky and you double it to 2 and we take in 4 million a year. Like, again, insane numbers. To you, it's little. That's insane numbers to just simply double. And so that all being said, I rest in solace knowing that I see an issue here. I see a legitimate reason for Texas to peacock and kind of puff out its chest a bit and check the government. Again, resting in solace, what makes me feel good is when 23 states come out and speak in solidarity in support of Texas. Dumbass DeWine does one thing right, and at least we're amongst them. And there's something to be said about this isn't a personal issue. This isn't an unempathetic issue. This is speaking to facts of the matter. The reality is there is a legal duty for the federal government to protect something that they aren't, and many countries are coming out in support. Scary part is it's reflexive of our team lines, right? Red and blue.
It's a lot of it is Republican versus Democratic states,
which is scary,
or at least just like majority, like county. So if you look in there, like Missouri, probably sometimes might be a blue state. Some depending on the election, you have a few of them in there. But like what I find interesting is like New Mexico, Arizona, and California. The other 3 states that border Mexico also are not in favor of this. Now, Arizona somewhat surprises me because they've been a red state all the way up until this previous election, and I'm curious why. I think the governor's fairly Republican, or at least fairly conservative, and hasn't come out like in favor of that. Is it the changing population since it's so close to California? Do we have just like more Californians coming into Arizona and just like changing that demographic, or is that kind of a notion within that state? Do the people say, hey, well, I don't really care, this doesn't bother me?
That is definitely not the notion of Texas.
Well, not Texas, like Arizona. I think Arizona.
I don't know, man. I think the blue jersey wearing representatives are taking that position, but I really do not think the attitudes of Arizona is like, hey, fuck it, open this bitch up.
Yeah, because we're assuming that let's like Texas, the people don't want it, but well, what about the states that do want it? Is that like I don't know if we're pricing that into our calculations as far as our conversations go. If New Mexico thinks, hey, this is great and wonderful, we're going to take them in. Is that not amongst the people for them to decide? It's like, hey, I don't care if our state gets more more people, more representation, all that from the migrants. Is this necessarily a Texas issue, state issue, or kind of like a country issue?
Oh, that's a good question.
It's a loaded question.
Wait, hon, real quick. Before we continue on that, Brian,
yes,
comments.
Bama boy taking a lot of hot takes over here.
Woo! Oh, all right. Give them to me.
That's what we like, Bama boy.
Yeah. Hot takes banner. All right.
Give him the hot take banner.
So I believe if you don't live on the borders, oh God. If you don't live on the borders, you shouldn't get a vote on how it goes. And
that you know what? That is a hot take. I appreciate that.
I like you, Bama boy, but I don't know if that's the one.
I appreciate that.
And he's talking about New York, and how they were in favor of it until all those people started showing up. And then it starts to get a little bit more of a hot take.
Okay. All right. Lay it on us.
He's referring to Mexico, and he's saying the cartels and the government, the police, they're all scared of the cartels and how their country is. And it says
less
a lot.
Scared even owned.
Is that a hot take? I think that's fairly cool.
Says a lot about
Hey, Bama boy, not a hot take. The sky is blue.
Says a lot about their country, though.
That's true.
Well, I agree. I don't think it's a hot take. I think he's right on the money with that one. Yeah. You hear about how much money is just for this whole ordeal, for the fentanyl thing, or the drugs, guns, all this sort of stuff. And here's the other thing: it does go both ways. Because guess what we have is a freedom in the United States that we don't have in Mexico.
Oh,
to own firearms and own.
And they're trying to sue U.S. firearm companies, by the way.
They
Oh
are.
my
I don't think they're going to get too very.
They're not gonna get far with
but
that.
The courts already revived it.
You know what?
recently.
I want to sue you for suing them.
No, that's the thing. It's like, all right, how can you sue a company for selling a gun to a store, which then legally sold that gun to a person, which then illegally transported across the border?
Wait, why
There's
isn't Ford? Wait, time out.
A couple
Somebody
things going on
literally
here.
took a Ford F-150 and ran through
No,
a
but that's
6-year-old. Why is it?
Mexico
Stop. Why is
is-
that not Ford's issue?
Exactly.
Right? Why isn't that Ford's issue?
Exactly. U.S. is suing U.S. gun makers because their guns are making it across the border to cartel hands. How is that the gun makers' fault? Unless you have proof that they're legally just sending them across the border. No, I guarantee you it was legally purchased by someone who then is sending like Breaking Bad. The dude has Smurfs that he has buying Sudafed across the state and sending it to him so he can make meth. How do you know that guy doesn't have the same thing going on where he has a bunch of people buying guns legally and then shipping to him? They file off the numbers.
Well,
and
so
send it
is
across
the.
border.
So let me push back.
And to go
All
back.
right,
Oh, I'm
finish your
sorry.
point. No, finish your point. Let me.
Hey.
No,
Finish your point.
but then we're also talking about all this stuff here, and Texas is very unique. All right, let's remember they had that whole power grid crisis a year ago. Well, the reason they had that crisis is because they are a self-isolated grid. They have their own grid. They don't share with another state, whereas most states are connected in some way. All right. And
he's
they
right.
have a true identity. The people of Texas are Texans. They're not, they're Americans, but they are Texans. And Texas is the only state in the goddamn country that actually has a secession movement, that actually has members and is constantly putting stuff on the ballot to try and secede from the Union.
Except New
Wasn't
Hampshire.
California trying to secede
California,
as well?
yeah, but New Hampshire
Yeah, but California
literally
can't
is.
survive without federal money because of all the subsidies they give out because of their liberal agenda.
Well,
Texas could
I'd
actually
argue every
survive
state-
on their own, I think, because of their oil output.
Ohio
alone.
is the swing state.
I'd
Doug.
argue every state can't survive without federal subsidies or without the
No,
federal government.
I mean, to an extent, but California spends so much of their budget on liberal subsidies at the state posts that they live off of that federal fund. They could not survive in their current
don't
budget.
they generate the most
Texas
amount of money
doesn't
of
have
any
a budget
state?
deficit the same way as California.
Isn't California the most prosperous state as far as just revenue generating for the government over every other state?
Yeah, but also how much does that state then spend of all the revenue they make on their liberal agenda?
Yeah, and they're supported a little bit by the federal government, but they are.
Alex, your face here, man.
Our
Join in.
comment section is going wild, and I don't mean
Wild.
just
All right,
the
I
comment.
just wanna
You all
end
are
this-
going off the
I
rails.
just
We
want
gotta
to end
acknowledge
this with
Shatner, what do we got?
Shatner's here.
William Shatner. I feel like the government. I feel like the government is
We do this
gaslighting
every
us.
time.
What's more concerning, them not being able to come up with solutions that make sense or not answering our questions truthfully?
Ooh, all right. What's the questions?
Well,
No, what?
no.
That's a what? Okay, read it again so we can digest.
Shatner. All right.
I feel like the government is gaslighting us. What's more
not
concerning
us.
is them not being able to come up with solutions that make sense or not answering our questions
Well,
truthfully.
so let me
Exactly.
let me dive into this one. 'Cause This is my main.
Hey, do me a favor.
All right,
Dive in.
dive. Oh, all right. So
Dive
this is
in.
I think my main topic here with this whole border crisis thing. I've been waiting.
We've hit the
I've
crux.
been waiting to throw
Hit
this
the
one out. again.
crux.
So there's a lot of fundraising that comes from conservative movements on the border crisis for the Republican Party, for Libertarian Party, for all these conservative groups. A lot of money fundraised there. On the Democratic side, well, we want free rights for these migrants, we want these individuals. A lot of money gets funneled in through there. Everyone donates. I want these people in my sanctuary cities. I want these people doing my laundry. I want them here. I want them available. There is human rights across the board. There is no incentive to solve this problem the way our politics are structured right now. There isn't. How many years of Republican control have we dealt with the border crisis, and we constantly deal with this border crisis? Do we not forget the caravan, the migrant caravan that came across the country? It suddenly stopped after the election.
or kids in cages.
They're
still in cages.
They're still there. There's no how many election cycles in a row are we going to get to the point like you're not doing anything for us? You're like, I'm surprised the evangelicals and
it took this long to get there?
The farmers and the tractors. What are you doing? You're supporting the wrong people. You need go to your politician's house. That's where you need to protest. Don't protest in the border. Protest
and you know how you do that? Send immigrants to their front yard.
They're not solving the issue because there's no incentive to solve the issue. This is always it's kind of like abortion here too. We eventually got to a striking point with the Supreme Court rulings. Prior to that, it's always just been a talking point amongst everyone. Everyone's just quabbling with each other to fundraise until finally someone did something. I may not necessarily agree with it, but they did something. The border, we have done nothing.
Nothing. We've done less.
There's a border wall in one of your videos. The border wall's there. It's not doing a whole lot.
People they're literally running inside it.
Running right through.
The border wall doesn't run the whole border. What's the point of having a border wall if it doesn't run the whole damn border?
It's a
I
cow
think that's a fair point.
Canada. I mean, Canada, you could stroll across and walk into Canada and no one knows. Well, guess what? Mexico ain't Canada.
That's true.
It's a cow farm. There's going to be cows outside.
What's the biggest solution we've had other than a couple miles of border wall? It hasn't happened.
Let's build thousands of miles, damn it.
And there's no appetite to do it.
Yeah, because that's
why
to say.
Texas has to take.
Have you seen a Cuban raft? Like, what's a wall when you could just make a raft? Like, again, it makes it more difficult, but we're not even talking about the real issues here. I think we need to start bringing the train back to the station.
All right.
Wrapping thoughts before we get to anything.
You got a lot of rebuttals,
Ricky, if I know you're out there in the wing. We're gonna get to Ricky. What do we got, my homie?
Hey, I'm just saying, Mexico has the same problem as well. They're coming on their borders, their shores. They don't have the manpower to willfire. I fuck with Mexico. I don't want to mess up the relationship with Mexico because it's right next to America, and we need a lot from Mexico. That's my little take.
I like that. Doug,
that's a good point.
I know you're itching to give us your rapping thought.
No, it's not even my rapping thoughts. I've been waiting
whose
this whole
is it?
time
Whose
for
rapping
you,
thoughts
for
are
you
I
to give
still
a
am-
rebuttal to my
Doug,
melting pot.
I need you to understand. I am doing 4D
I love
chess.
you to death, man.
I'm pages ahead of everybody in this room.
That's cool.
And the person
I just
watching.
wanted to make sure to give you a chance with my rapping thoughts. So if that's my rapping thought.
What
I
a
give it all my
wasted
thoughts.
rapping thought.
Okay.
My rapping thought,
Doug.
My rapping thought is I want to hear your thought on my thoughts.
Okay,
Boom.
the melting
That's
pot.
my rapping
Coming to
thought.
my rapping thoughts, as it takes
I love
Doug
you, Alex. I
3
love you.
times to remind me to also be told the fact I am on top of it. Like a debater, I have every point that needs to be made.
You
ready.
are, but as the audience, I wanted to make sure you responded to my comment. All right,
And
like
that-
you're giving all the commenters a chance to reply to you. I wanted
Because
my
you know what's funny? You know what's funny? I like Doug pointing that out. There was one comment that came like in a paragraph following the last episode. And again, I shouldn't even give this clown any attention. Like, this is the antithesis to what Joe Rogan says. Literally, the comment on the last episode, like post it being live, big paragraph. Loud dude in the sweater clearly does not give anybody else, and it would just win in on me. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck it.
I like this guy already.
I'm going to let you guys talk, and then I'll just bring
I don't know.
all of my
let him
thoughts.
Cook. Let that commenter cook.
The dude 100% came to David's defense. All right.
Oh,
So,
all right.
I like this guy.
wrapping thoughts.
Okay.
It's a scary place to be. I also in no way want to encourage instances that lead us closer to a civil war.
Like Texas secession.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
I appreciate being on the side that supports rightness, and I understand that can be subjective.
Can be.
I think in the lens of objectivity, though, somebody is right. Somebody is right, and I do think this one's the right one, but I could be wrong.
Okay.
That being said, this is a severe problem. Immigration does not solve the problem of people's homes being war-torn and dangerous and unhealthy. So if you want to help these people, help them where they're at. I wish I also think it's a phony, it's a faux position that people actually think the border should be open. I haven't met a person. I truly don't think that person exists. And when you push the subject to a clown in a blue jersey, the reality is they deep down are like, well, no, not everybody without vetting. I just want vetting. And you're like, okay, but you're an idiot that doesn't think out facts. So like, let's start how to implement that, clown. Like, what does that mean? That means you need a person in a uniform that is personally vetting that. Do you have enough? How are you going to fund that? Oh my God. Then the Republicans, the assholes with facts, like they don't make my fiction and ground it in reality. No. Well, let's operate in reality. So the situation we face is, it's fun to have every cute, empathetic delusion you want to live in, but when you try to ground it in reality, it's a difficult thing. I do want to address something that Doug raised, that Doug has taken multiple attempts to bring me back to. When it comes to the melting pot versus what I think we've become is a salad bowl, right?
I agreed with you there, too.
100%. The spirit of this was America was its own culture. And it was a beautiful culture. It was an accepting culture. It was a culture affected by all the cultures, right? But then victimhood became a currency. So in a world where it used to be cute to like, oh, I like that girl put beads in her hair. Well, I'm going to put beads in my hair. Oh, hell no, bitch. That is culture appropriation. Well, okay, the more we started to guard the melting of cultures, the less we became that melting pot. The more we became a salad bowl where we were a group of individuals versus one individual affected by the group. Dangerous place to be. If you go visit Canada, like I was just in Toronto. Yep. Wait, dude, it's here. Oh my God.
No, well, hey.
Shut up, Doug. I swear to God, if you say a word, I'll fucking kill you.
Right. Whoa.
Yeah, seriously, I'm muting you now.
You know, I've been looking at that for a little bit of time.
I have my gay cup. I went to Toronto this year. They love being gay so much that it wasn't even June. It was well beyond June, and they wanted to just go, hey, baby cakes, we're still super gay. So I went to Toronto, and what was cool about being gay in Toronto was you realize, and Toronto, Canada itself, I wish, man, if this wasn't live, I would play right now the video of Trudeau acknowledging that there is no culture in Canada. And a major reason to that is that they're all so spread out. There isn't some unification. I mean, even between the territories, like one's totally French, the other one's totally native, and the other one's kind of modern, but a mix between them all. And they're all speaking different languages, and they're all what's the deal here?
What you want to mute him?
Oh, you're muted. You're 100% muted. So that being said, yeah, because when you talk while other people are talking, then it's literally undigestible. Nobody can hear it. Now you've corrupted whatever you said, and they can't hear us.
Keep going on.
So the reality is, you're talking about Canada. Canada has no culture. Why? Because they're just this sanctuary country. Everybody come here. And you walk through Toronto, nobody speaks a common language. No, and literally Toronto's like the wild, wild west. It's not the perfect example of this, but when you look at it, it's chaos over there. They have a difficult time policing themselves because, again, defund the police. They've taken the liberal perspective, but now it's just all of these people from foreign cultures that don't speak the language, do not assimilate. And because of that, when Trudeau finally comes out and goes, for the people of Canada, there's nothing that unifies them. I'm not a person of Canada. I'm an expat from India. And all I give a shit about is finding enough money to feed myself today and get a little bit extra to send back home. Because deep down, I have no allegiance to Canada. I only have allegiance to the people stuck at home. And that's the symptom of countries that are peddled by expats. So I am fearful the more you become a salad bowl, the less you have a unification of culture. And I don't care what that culture looks like. It does not have to be dip, trucks, and guns. Like, it doesn't have to be your stereotypical cowboy hillbilly. I don't care if it's like, listen, we have tacos on Tuesday. Oh my God, if you were to take a pot sticker away from me, I'd kill you. I love Chinese food. Like, there's music I love, but imagine what this country would be like if we didn't have Black culture affecting our music and our style, right? So we can't live without it. It is a pillar to who we are, but also we can't just say, well, now we need to just become that one. Like if you had a salad bowl, you can't just be the tomatoes. You can't just be the lettuce. You can't just be the cheese or the dressing. What makes it something is that we all come together as one. And so I think guarding, appropriations is such a phony, sad way of dividing us and creating more conflict. And more so, I think we need to start pushing back against the narrative and recognizing that it is not a hyperbolic position to advocate for to advocate for a culture. The culture doesn't need to be cowboys, but it needs to be American. And when you start making patriotism racist, well, now it's racist to be in favor of our country. What's the point? What are we doing here? I'm talking about a social contract. Literally, none of this is purposeful. None of it exists insofar as you're protecting all of it. You're not protect. You're an antagonist against it. I'm very distracted by this drunk couch, so I'm going to pitch it over to David.
So on the point of the melting pot, I'd probably argue way back in the Ellis Island days, it was a lot more salad bowl than it is fondue. I think today we're a lot more fondue than we are salad bowl. Because we have to remember, first generation, whatever you come from into America isn't always going to assimilate into America. The things the melting pot areas we love, like the Chinatowns, the little Italies, the little Polish towns, all those little pierogies we have over here, German villages, they all started from first generation something. They all started from the area. And eventually over time is what allowed them to be, synchronized into a little bit more of American culture. I think we can all sympathize if we were to move from one spot to another. I'm a transplant from somewhere to Cleveland. I was never a Clevelander. I was never someone who appreciated the place. First got here, I didn't get all the hype. And eventually, the more I started to live here, the more I started to understand, the more, Cleveland, it kind of rocks. It's a cool place to be. It does. So you have to let these things have time. So we have to remember every second of every day there's a first generation of something legally or illegally coming here, but they do choose to come here. Whether that be for economic reasons, mostly it's economic reasons, freedom reasons, all sorts of different things. There will eventually be, I think it's the second, third, fourth generations of what they do produce does meld into the culture, and that's what allows us to be the greatest country we are to be here. So I think we are, we want this to be a legal process. We want this to be a situation.
It has to be.
It has to be. It for like security and for just like the economic prosperity of the country. We kind of have to maybe regulate who comes in, who comes out, and maybe be a bit more pick and choosy than we necessarily were. But there is America is an idea, not necessarily a singular thing. We do have some singular things like cowboys. That's unique to us. Tornadoes, fairly unique to us. But outside of that, we are a combination of different building blocks from several different places. Remember, we're fairly young. We're one of the youngest countries in the world. China is like 3 or 4 times older than we are as a society, and they still around. They still do things, but they're not quite as I think adventurous as we are, prosperous as we are. We had to let them into the world for them to get to the level that they're at. So we do hold some power. I think we're a lot better than we think we are sometimes, even in this room. So I think that's going to be my little final thoughts on this one. I'll kind of bring it back to the more optimistic viewpoint.
Brian, rapid thoughts.
Hey, my eyes are up here. Where are you looking? I'm gonna just leave the comment section as is. I'm not gonna bring him into this conversation, but just know that
the comments are wilding.
Yeah, there is some.
Is it an argument or is it a one-way conversation?
It's a lot of culture and sexuality talk about cups and Skittles.
Cups and Skittles.
And others.
I have to read this one a little bit later.
Yeah.
Is Bama Boy? Is our boy Bama Boy?
Yeah, Bama and Ricky are bouncing off each other.
Bama Boy. Yeah, I think he's my personal favorite. It used to be Scatner, now it's Bama Boy.
I want to try to fix Brian's camera.
Yeah.
Well, I do have a comment. Am I unmuted?
You're unmuted, Doug.
All right.
Let her ride. Let her go free.
No, I love. So Alex rebutted my point, which is what I wanted. All right.
Keep going, Doug. Keep going, Doug.
Further,
stay on track.
But he talked about like Canada. All right, and I actually had friends from Canada. So like the place I would go to every year for Florida timeshare that my grandmother owned, that then we inherited. There were some Canada people there. And oh my gosh, were they racist against the French Canadians. Like apparently for a long time, they'd had some French Canadians as PMs, and then they finally got a non-French Canadian as a PM. And I remember the dude's mom talking about that. And this was like 20 years ago, all right? But like the French Canadians truly have an identity of their own versus the regular Canadian. They truly do. The what is it, Quebec, like the French Quebec or what? And that kind of circles back to my point of Texas has a true identity as Texans.
Good point.
You know, and so like Gergeb mentioned that, and it kind of just brought around that like Texas are the Texans. And like Quebec, they are the French Canadians.
And they beat the Browns in the playoffs. So screw them, Ricky.
America is great, man. Listen, we take everything from everyone. Me, from Jamaica, a diehard Browns fan, a diehard Cavalier fan. I didn't know nothing about football, basketball, nothing. Buckeyes all day, you know.
There we go.
People take things from people. Nothing wrong with it. Whoever's sensitive about it, I'll keep it PG. But, you know, America is great, bro. Stop hating on the country. America is great. America is great.
I appreciate that. You know what? That's a damn good, and that's the perfect.
Damn, Ricky's just been sending her off home.
Right, and it's a perfect comment to end on. Thanks for watching this clip from the Rethink Tank Live. Join us every Tuesday at 7 p.m. streaming across the platforms on YouTube, Rumble, X, Twitch, Facebook, LinkedIn, and TikTok. We do our best to promote user engagement, and we want you involved. So be sure to bring your perspective live so we can get you in the dialogue. See you then.